Hey, have you heard? It's your host, Chris DeMakes, and I'm headed back to the Punk Rock Museum. That's right, the powers that be have invited me back, and I couldn't be more excited. Allow me to be your guide as we wind through 5 decades of punk rock history, merchandise, and memorabilia. Cinco de Mayo weekend, Friday, May 3rd, Saturday, May 4th, and Sunday, May 5th. There'll be 2 tours each day at 12:30 p.m. and 4 p.m. And the best part for me is you. Your stories, your questions, your experiences. Yep, some of you old punkers have taught this guy a thing or two on these tours, and I love it. Head over to thepunkrockmuseum.com for tickets. Don't miss out. Only 30 spots per tour. Get your tickets now at thepunkrockmuseum.com. Hey gang, today's guest is Paige Hamilton, lead vocalist and guitarist for the New York City alternative metal band, Helmet. Together we break down the writing, recording, and release of the hit single, Unsung, taken from their 1992 album, Meantime. This song and riff, the riff as I call it, is quintessential 90s, the blueprint riff for everything from Foo Fighters to Queens of the Stone Age to Rage Against the Machine, Pantera, Megadeth, and Soundgarden. You can hear the influence of Helmet. Paige recalls writing the riff while sitting at an old desk in his New York City apartment, a riff that defined a decade. And lyrically, Paige had a lot to say without actually saying it outright, straddling that artistic line between abstract and hitting you over the head. And talk about a banger live. I still get chills every time I think about hearing the song as an 18-year-old kid for the first time, live at a show in Gainesville, Florida. As you'll hear in the episode, I was truly moved by their performance. So, for all this and a whole lot more, don't you dare go anywhere. Hey, have you heard? Chris DeMakes a podcast. 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 Well, Paige, I'm excited to talk to you. I got to pick your brain. I went back researching this, and I don't know if you remember a show, because you played a lot, yeah. A show in August 91 at the Hardback Cafe in Gainesville.
I absolutely remember that. With L7 opening up, it was the day after we finished mixing Meantime, and I flew to Gainesville and met the band. They went down in the van and trailer or whatever, and Andy Wallace and I stayed in New Jersey and finished the last Meantime mix, and then we started that tour.
Would that have been then when I saw you with Jawbox? Would that have been the following year at the Hardback?
Possibly, yeah.
Because I thought that was August of 91. I thought it was the Strap It On tour, but then I went back and I was looking at set lists from that time period. I couldn't find one from that night, but I did find you at St. Andrew's Hall, and you opened with Unsung.
Okay.
Would that be right?
It's possible.
Okay.
Somebody sent me a really cool video from the Euclid Tavern in Cleveland.
Oh, wow.
Yeah, the first time we played there in 91, and we opened with Rude from Strap It On, and we played Unsung. So it was before Meantime came out, because Meantime came out in 92. I think it was June 92. That's
correct, but wasn't there a version on Amphetamine Reptile Records?
Yeah, I think it was a John Peel or Mark Goodrich. Is it Mark Goodrich, the English guy?
Well, this said it was a John Peel session.
John Peel. So we did a John Peel session, and I had written the song, and we had rehearsed it before we went to Europe, and we recorded it. And then Hazelmeyer was like, at Amphetamine Reptile, was like, "Oh, cool, this will be a cool 7-inch." So we did a 7-inch of it, and that back when it wasn't about just cranking money into radio stations and promotion and all, and here's some cocaine and hookers and whatever. They just started playing it at that cool radio station out in Long Island, which I cannot remember, the WLIR maybe, or KCRW or something like that. They changed the name of the station, but they would play like The Cure, U2, was kind of indie-ish, and when they first started out, and then they started playing Unsung on the radio station, and then we started noticing more and more people at shows, and so that was kind of got us going, and I think helped us get signed to Interscope. Your contribution left then we redid this song with Wharton for Meantime. So there's two different versions.
Right. And was the version on Meantime, was that recorded with Steve Albini?
No, that was recorded with Wharton Tears.
Okay. Well, there's some misinformation online, and that's another thing I wanted to ask you to clear that up. It was mixed by Andy Wallace, though.
Absolutely. Yeah.
Great. Okay. Well, sorry to get long-winded with the timeline. I was all of 17 and 3/4 years old in August of 91. I was at the University of Florida. I came from a town my listeners know 3 hours south, and I get to this mecca of Gainesville, Florida, okay? I got to see you guys, Jawbox, Fugazi, the Boss Tones, Fishbone, you name it, before they were household names. And this particular show that night, when I saw you, my friend John Resch, John played in a band called Spoke in Gainesville. And Spoke were dear friends of mine. And John, we'd go hang out and have some beers, and he's playing Strap It On before we went to the show. And
cool.
I had heard of you guys, and I had heard, I want to say he played Unsung, probably from the John Peel session. And we get there that night. I'm telling you, you open with Unsung. It was the first time I ever got lifted up by my shoulders. There was probably 300 people crammed in the hardback that legally could have held about 75 or 100.
I've opened with it at festivals and stuff, and before. We've tried everything for set lists after 35 years. These hour and a half, 2 hour sets for the 30th anniversary of the 30-song sets. So the guys must know 95 songs or something. And they have to remind me sometimes. I'm like, is this bridge good? And they're like, this. So it's absolutely possible. I think the third time we played Gainesville was a theater on campus.
That would have been the Orange and Brew.
Yeah, I had a guitar stolen, unfortunately, from there, which is a bummer. It was like my magenta Horizon Custom, except for it was red. No security, and they had the back door was open. Cars were on stage in a boat, guitar boat, and somebody said, "I just saw somebody running out the back door with a red guitar." I was like, great, thanks.
Oh gosh, I had that happen at the Chili Pepper in Fort Lauderdale about 20 years ago. Same thing. Yeah.
Like, it's a beautiful guitar too. Like I have 3 of those Horizon Customs with the pointy headstocks.
Yeah.
I had 5 in total. One is owned by a guy in Long Island now, and he tried to sell it to me, and I was like, I
hope the rest of your memories from Gainesville are well, because I'm telling you, the 2 shows I saw you guys play there were absolutely incredible. And you were one of those bands that gave me that initial hope of, well, what if we could scrounge enough money to get a van? What if we could go do this? Because these were just buddies of mine. We were at this punk house hanging out, and we'd be listening to the bands we were going to see. And it's a long time ago, but it's still vivid to me. And that excitement of listening to the record and going there and hearing that song. And I had also read, and want to ask you, this could be erroneous information as well, but I heard that Steve Albini in particular wasn't fond of Andy Wallace or his mixes, in particular with this project. How much truth is there to that?
Do you know Steve at all?
I don't know him personally, but I know Steve's a purist. I know where he comes from in terms of aesthetics with recording, and I understand his philosophy.
Yeah, kind of. I mean, I love Steve. Like, I think he's a talented guy, and we wanted to work with him, and we did. Chicago, stayed at his house, and went to Chicago Recording Company before Steve had his own studio kind of fully, in functioning. And I've worked with so many people. I mean, the guy that worked with Led Zeppelin at the BBC, I want to say Robinson, worked with, in Australia, I did a remix with great engineers. I worked with Wharton Tears, with Butch Vig, with Andy Wallace, with Terry Date, with Dave Sardi, Anton Puchansky, engineered with us, Martin Bisi, Don Fury, who did our first recordings. We've worked with a lot of people. I've been making records for a long fucking time.
Sure.
The only one that he gets this thing for his fans, his kind of fanboys that dress like him and want to be him, that nothing is cool if he doesn't say it's cool. And him talking about Andy Wallace's mixes is kind of ridiculous, because Andy's the one of the best mixers, best people I've ever worked with. He's phenomenal. His ears are amazing. I wouldn't tell him anything. I would just say, I would let him work for a couple hours, and then he'd say, when I come in and listen, I'd listen, and he would have picked up things that were details that and so I knew it was like, okay, he's really in it, he's really listening, and he's got great ears and stuff. And I was in Australia and we were touring, and our tour guys down there, Pav and Nick, was saying, oh yeah, Steve was saying you lost your creative energy because you started playing, you did a jazz tune on the Betty album. And I'm like, it's like, actually it was kind of more of a fuck you to record industry. How do you like this? You think we're hot shit? Like, how do you like this? And and I've talked to Dwayne Dennison and David Sims and Yao, who are dear friends of mine from Jesus Lizard, who worked with them, and I know the Nirvana guys and stuff. And he would, I don't know the Pixies at all. I know I've met Kim a few times and her sister Kelly, but he works with bands and then it kind of knocks them down. And I just don't. If you don't want the job, don't take it. Don't do the job. Don't talk shit about people. You know what I mean? And that kind of, I don't care what Steve thinks about Andy Wallace. I love Andy Wallace.
Well, and I hope I didn't touch a nerve here. I wasn't trying to bring up something.
Not at all. I just think Steve has a thing, and it's kind of like Ernest Hemingway said about critics. Critics have to have a tag. They have to have a shtick, some kind of thing. You're a music critic. You're a film critic. Graham Greene, one of my all-time favorite writers, I've read like 20 books from. He was a critic, but he was a writer as well. So he's coming from an artist standpoint. Steve is an artist. So stop being like a critic. Like I look at a lot of music critics as people that don't play instruments, and they just, either put you in the cool kids club or not. And I have never, ever wanted to be in the cool kids club. I don't give a flying fuck about that.
Right there with you.
I just care less who thinks our music is cool and not. I'm 63 years old. I've been doing this for 35 years in this band. I've done probably 4,000 shows around the world. I play jazz every day of my life. I do weird film music. I listen to, everything from Ralph Vaughan Williams to Bartok and Beethoven, and I just love music, and I love Big Black. There were songs about fucking, Atomizer. Those are fantastic albums, and they were an influence on me.
Mm-hmm.
I loved Rape Man. We toured with them when I was in Band of Susans. Two Nuns and a Pack Mule was fantastic, and that band was incredible. The band he has now doesn't float my boat as much. It feels a little bit like it's more of the same thing, and not as, I don't know. Just for me, I forget the album. My friend Eric Sanko from Skeleton Key loved this album that they did. What's this band called now, Albini? Fucking.
Oh, geez. Why am I blanking on it? I know it.
Yeah. It's got a tape cover as the cover. Like, anyway, it's got this song at the beginning, and kill him, fucking kill him. And I'm just like, okay. He's such a talented guy, but he has his aesthetic, but it's not necessarily just because he says this is his aesthetic and he's a purist, that, if you're a purist, then don't work with bands that you don't like, or don't, you got to make a living. And I don't know. I've worked with a lot of bands. Some were really good and some were not good. You know what I mean?
Hey, Chris, what's up?
The band you're trying to think of is Shellac.
There we go.
Shellac. Yeah. So for me personally, that it didn't really float my boat.
Well, the reason I had brought that up, and my listeners know, I always do the car test. And I think a lot of us do that. We'll get a new mix. And every time I do an episode, day before, I dive into it and I'll get the car at some point. Yesterday, I was going to pick up the kids from school and I cranked up Unsung. And 33 years later, Paige, it sounds like a truck coming at you.
That's
it
great.
It sounds as good today as it did the first time I heard it. Yes, I'm going to say it. I was one of those kids that heard Unsung live before it hit MTV. I knew the band when I saw you and I got lifted off the ground. I'm like, man, there is something here. My friend John Resch was right. I became an instant fan. Can you take us back to writing Unsung? Do you remember writing it?
Yeah, I do. The car test, first of all, reminds me of Jay Baumgartner, who mixed a couple Helmet albums, Size Matters.
Jay's awesome.
God damn, that guy too, man. He's incredible. And we would sit in his car. We'd go out, we'd work on a mix, and car in the parking lot. good way to listen. You know, everybody has a different kind of technique. Wharton Tears, we'd go in the other room or listen to the little, with Andy, the little scooter speaker on, because we did all those recordings on tape. But I don't remember how Unsung started, but I remember writing it. I was with my now ex-wife, then girlfriend, and our roommate, and we lived in a railroad flat in East Village, very, very far east. God, one block north of Tompkins Square Park, and then east of Tompkins Square. Was it 11th Street, I think? Between 11th, between B and C. And we had a front room, which is our bedroom, the kitchen, which had a bathtub in it, and then there was this little crappy room faced an air shaft, and then there was a room in the back where our roommate lived, and then you had to walk under her bed to get to the toilet, which is up by really weird place. But I was just sitting, and I had my same desk that I still have, that I got from a roommate, Eric Brandenburg, grew up in my hometown, coincidentally, but was dating a girl I lived with in Harlem at the time. And so I still have this awesome desk. And it's been my work desk for a million years, still use it. And I was sitting in there staring at the air shaft, and I had this idea of this kind of rhythmic displacement thing. Like, I've always been fascinated with like superimposing time signatures, playing, that's an easy one, 3 against 4, 1, 2, 3, 4. This is 5 against 4. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. 7 against 4. I always loved that. I sit in the subway like a dork in New York and kind of do this thing. And I loved something like I always bring up with my students, the Fifth Symphony for Beethoven. It's a simple theme. Bum, 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 bum. G to E flat. And it's in the key of C minor. And the same two notes move down within the same key. Bum, 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 bum. And he's taking a pattern, a simple pattern, and he's displacing it rhythmically and harmonically. So that's kind of Unsung. I had this idea. I got this cool groove in my head. I remember facing the air shaft, and I didn't want to just do a verse, chorus, bridge, chorus out kind of form. I was always also really, because I'm a jazz nerd and not just a jazz nerd, just a fan of harmony. I spent a lot of time working on harmonic stuff and, chord substitutions and superimpose, even like Band of Susans when I played with Robert Poss. He was doing that he didn't have any training or anything, but I was playing a guitar tuned to E, and playing these open kind of chords against what they were doing. They were, Band of Susans had 3 guitars, and so it's kind of a combination of that, and then my love of jazz and upper tertials, I guess you would call it, harmonic ideas. Like here's a G chord, here's a G chord. It's comprised of G, B, and D. Well, if I keep going up and I want to keep it major, major 7 would be F sharp and 9A. Sharp 11, C sharp, keep going up. So it's like those are 2 separate chords that you can put together. And so the outro is so funny. For years and years playing that song, and we'll be playing with different bands from, I don't know, Korn to Evanescence to, System of a Down, and all these bands that have told us we were an influence on them. And somebody would inevitably say, "Can I play a song with you guys on stage?" I'm like, "Do you know the song?" "Yeah, totally know the song." And then they get up there and shit the bed on the, that middle section, da, da, da.
Oh.
And I've seen people have sent me videos on YouTube. This person is going like, it's 17 times of, for that. I was just like, oh my God, this makes my brain hurt. I didn't conceive of it like a math equation at all. I just was playing the groove, and it's like do da da da. And like if you play 3 measures of, if you play 3/4 against 4/4, it's going to come around every 3 measures. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Back to the top of the riff, and that's an intellectual, analysis of it, but it's still just about feel, and still just about. So, as far as the chorus idea, I like the idea of kind of building tension with a riff, a kind of a repetitive thing. I mean, something that Albini like was great at and talked about all the time is like, repetition of a riff. I love that. Was kind of specifically writing Sinatra, thinking of that, thinking that, that's that thing. The whole song is that riff. And then it kind of busts into that open kind of chordal orchestral bridge thing.
The end is almost like a 2 minute and 33 second coda. I mean, it's
yeah.
it's this cap on the end of this song that's 4 minutes long. It's 3 minutes and 59 seconds. And just real quick, Paige, a couple more things, and I want to dive into this. Such a great song, and as I was combing through, I noticed one of the notes that says, the band's music crossed all borders. It was getting played on both Headbangers Ball and 120 Minutes. Well, Headbangers Ball was for the metalheads, and 120 Minutes was for the alternative rockers. And going back to this time period, I mean, you had mentioned a couple of them, Evanescence, System of a Down, but I mean, I hear Soundgarden, I hear Queens of the Stone Age, I hear Foo Fighters, All My Life, and Stacked Actors, and some of those songs like Tucka 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 Tucka. It's like, yeah. Wow, this was such a blueprint for that stuff. I hear some DC hardcore within the music. I also hear Black Sabbath. I hear early Kiss in this song. It's just this amalgamation. But
Hendrix part, the drum break, like that. That's what Tim Carr from Warner Brothers, who tried to sign us, pointed out to me. So sorry to interrupt you, but that's
no. It's just I never, and I've talked about this a lot when I start to break down songs and look at them through the microscope. I've heard this song a million times, but, really, really concentrating and getting into the nuts and bolts of it. It's like, wow, there's so much going on here. 3 minutes and 59 seconds. The intro is 4 bars of super pushed driving drums and overdriven bass, huge bass tone, followed by 4 bars of distortion guitar panned off right. It's just how heavy that one guitar is. It's just shredding over there. I absolutely love it. On bar 9 and continuing through bar 16th, the band is joined by another guitar. It's panned slightly left, Page, that hits a single note, which becomes a menacing feedback. Lots of room ambience on that.
Yeah.
Then the band stops on that huge drop D chord for 2-bar holdout to set up for what I wrote here in the notes, the riff. I just did air quotes. The riff. That riff, man, when I think 90s, okay, and that riff, I can hear, like I said, Pantera, Megadeth, metal. I can hear the alternative world, even Green Day, the Foo Fighters. When I think 90s, there's like 10 songs that immediately come to mind. Woohoo, the thing by Blur. This riff, dun-dun-dun, dun-dun-dun. I mean, this is just quintessential for that period. I know you've heard this a lot. I know you're not looking for accolades, but my gosh, you sat there at your old desk that you got and you wrote this riff as we do as songwriters, not thinking at all. Think of how young you were. And here we are 33 years later and someone's telling you, I have no reason to say this to you, this song was, in this riff in particular, was highly influential. You got to be so proud of that, man.
It's cool. You reminded me, the Pantera thing, Dimebag said to me, first, when I was still living in that railroad flat, I had a phone conversation with Phil Anselmo, the singer, Pantera, and he said, Pepper Keenan from COC said, we got to be careful, we're ripping Helmet off, because they were working on Vulgar Display of Power, that album. What do you mean? And he said, the Unsung riff, and then he said, he played me their song over the phone that uses that riff. And I forget the name of it, I'm such an idiot.
Is it, the song Respect? Chris is going to know.
That would be Walk.
Walk.
Bump, ba-da-da-da-da-da-da. But he played me the riff over the phone, and I just said, that's cool. I said, maybe just give us a thank you or whatever. And he said, oh, we're not doing that. I'm like, that's fine. But then later kind of hanging with those guys, Phil, that night in Texas when they played his songs in the parking lot at Trees from their, soon to be released Vulgar Display of Power album. They were still writing. Went out with Dime and Rex and Phil. Vinny didn't come that night, but we had a great fucking time. And they've always been so complimentary and cool. And then Dime said to me, like, I told you you're going to influence me. And it's that makes you feel good when a band that you dig, or Chino from Deftones, is like, man, I like listen to this, and they covered Sinatra, and he said, a lot of your lyrical ideas. I'm like, what, my stream of conscious nonsense? Like,
Well, I can't wait to get into that. We're going to get into the lyrics. I got to know what's going on here. But I got to say, you're talking about people looking at you. We did the Warped Tour together in 2006. You guys were touring the Monochrome record. And Paige, it would be, I'd be watching every band, all the guitarists for sure, and the lead singers just be standing there, just watching your band. And it was like, that was 13 years after the fact of the song, and it just went to show you then how influential the whole thing was. But this riff's going here, and we get into verse 1. I'm hearing the vocals are double tracked here. One sounds super dry, and one sounds maybe like it has a little verb, an effect on it.
Your contribution left unnoticed, some association with an image. Just credit time for showing up again. Attention wandered, I'm left with it.
Your contribution left unnoticed, some association with an image. Just credit time for showing up again. Attention wandered. I'm left with it.
Boy, whew. A lot of the lyrics that have been misconstrued. I had this idea. Robert Pott, again, who I played with in Band of Susans, and had a huge impact on me. About teaching me more and more about distortion, combining two distortion pedals. He started talking about lyrics. He said, I would write a line on a piece of paper and then write a line on another piece of paper. I would put the pieces of paper on the floor and pick them up and go, okay, this is the sequence of the lines. This is the order of the lines. I liked that kind of idea. At the time, that kind of Americana music was coming out too, getting big. So everybody, singer-songwriter. Oh, he's a songwriter. You write songwriter. Oh, yeah, songwriter. I'm like, and nothing against this whatsoever, but it's like, and I'm like, okay, enough. I'm gonna be, I'm gonna be the anti-songwriter. There's no narrative. There's gonna be no way anybody can get close to me because I'm not gonna reveal anything to anyone. And so I would use metaphors, and I would like, 3 times removed. A lot of it also was communication with my then girlfriend, now ex-wife. I would write something about her, and I wouldn't want her to know what it was, so I'd come up with some line. But a huge thing, her father is a Buddhist, and he kind of got me into Buddhist thing. And so a lot of this stuff is sort of about, personal growth. Ego is a huge, and the notion of someone being unsung, and they're spending their life striving to become famous. And our culture is, it's even worse now than it was back then because of social media. And you've got people like, I was talking to my girlfriend. I'm like, who are these bands? Who are these people that are hosting Saturday Night Live? I have no fucking idea. Oh, she was on a show called the Housewives of Jersey or whatever. And I'm like, okay. And which is what? She said it's a reality show. I don't have network TV or whatever. I stream Yankee games and that's on my computer. But so a lot of this, the kind of idea on this song was about that. Someone like wanting so badly to be recognized and noticed and famous, and how hollow and shallow it is, and the notion that, look, we're all going to die, so you treat every human being that you ever come into contact with equal respect. I've met incredibly famous people, and I've met, people who were sweaty kids at shows. I used to, before COVID, I sat on the edge of the stage for like 10, 12 years, and after shows and just chatted to, I call them kids. I can call them kids at this point because I'm almost ready for Social Security. I just can't stand this celebrity worship in our culture. I think it's pathetic. I mean, I got to hang out with David Bowie and work with Bono and met Billy Gibbons and Neil Young and, Billy Idol, people that came to see us play, Tommy Lee and Nikki Sixx and Gene Simmons and all these people that are super famous that I grew up listening to, to Kiss, and they're just dudes, dudes and gals in bands or movies or TV shows or whatever. And so I guess I can't analyze each line because my other fascination is, as I pointed out, superimposing kind of rhythmic patterns. So if you're laying a vocal in as another instrument, it's got to be kind of rhythmically, flow with that riff. I can't play and sing that riff. I can play in 6/4 on, Easy to Get Bored or whatever, and I can play something like that, but I can't, it's out of tune, but it's like,
It is really, really tough to do both. Right off of verse 1, I want to get into the chorus. The lead vocal is still doubled. Stereo guitars and bass are now a full wall of downstroke strumming. And again, I wrote here, Paige, that this chorus is kind of like the blueprint for, I hate to call it alternative rock, but I mean, I'll say Foo Fighters again, Bush, Queens of the Stone Age, this just big wall of downstroke guitars. It just kind of, it's synonymous kind of with the 90s.
Gone by sin too slowly, can't pass it up. Then I thought nothing is right, I turned it off.
Gone by sin too slowly, can't pass it up.
Yeah.
Then I thought, nothing is right, I turned it off. And before you get into these, I gotta say, stream of consciousness, throw the lyrics on the floor, throw them against the wall, whatever sticks, pick them up, and those are your lyrics. Do you ever get a chuckle out of, because I've seen it, I've been in a room with 600 people lifting me off the ground, singing every one of these words like their life depends on it. And you're sitting there going, these were just pieces of paper on the floor 6 months ago. That to me is really cool.
Yeah. Also, I mean, everything we listened to, grew up hearing, like Paint It Black, Rolling Stones. I see the girls go by dressed in summer clothes. I had to turn my head until my darkness goes. That is kind of, okay, how can I say that? And it's a gone by sin too slowly. That's kind of, I mean, I'm basically ripping off Mick Jagger, obviously completely different words, but
sure,
idea. And then, the selling sex in our culture, where there's something on TV. And so they're going to show a sexy woman in a, V-cut blouse or whatever, and in your weakest moments, again, getting to the ego thing, and, in your weakest moments, you're going to like feel some kind of sexual attraction or whatever. And not that there's anything wrong with sexual attraction, but when it's manufactured like that, and it's meant to sort of trigger something, not like you're meeting a beautiful woman. And, like when I met my girlfriend, we were in a hiking group, and I was like, wow, she's beautiful. But you get to know somebody, you talk, and this thing that because they're selling toilet paper or whatever it is, they're selling fucking Charmin or Carl's Jr.'s burgers, those awful commercials with the hot girl eating the burger with the sound. It's like, you have this guilt, and all you did was like feel some kind of sexual. Oh God, Victoria's Secret. I was sitting with my brother and his husband. My brother's gay, and sitting at their house, and a commercial came on, and so I'm like a Victoria's Secret commercial. Of course, there's gorgeous women in lingerie, and so I turned to them and I'm go, so this does nothing for you. My brother's no, hell no, My brother's husband goes, I like their shoes, and I'm kind of like, okay, so like this. See, to me, I'm like, oh yeah, okay, that's. And if I'm with your girlfriend, you're not gonna be like, oh man, look, boobs or whatever, And so it's kind of. I think I write like songs about cultural observations, societal observations, but also you insert yourself and you feel pathetic that you succumb to, or that you are. That has an effect on you.
Well, and this to me is why I love doing this. It's so fascinating to hear a lyricist and where they're coming from.
Yeah.
Because when I try to get highbrow, like, I don't want you to know what I'm talking about. So if I try to get like this and kind of, make it a little obtuse or abstract, oh man, now I'm into Jethro Tull. How much acid did you take territory? You know? So there's a fine line here. I've always marveled at somebody that could, take something literal in their head and twist it around and put it like this. It's fascinating to me. It's really cool.
Yeah, there's a line in the song "In the Meantime," and I literally had a vision, like I was sitting there, like daydream all the time, whatever. That's when your girlfriend's like, "Are you listening to me?" I'm like, "Yeah, I am."
What did I say?
Yeah, exactly. Yogurt, is that And but that someone was floating. Their ego was so inflated that they were floating over the Oregon coast, over the trees where I grew up in Oregon, and I was trying to grab them and pull them down. If I could hold your feet down, get to know for a while, get to know yourself. That this whole notion, and people are like, "Is that a rape song?" No, like no, I'm talking so inflated, like
jeez,
someone getting carried away with themselves, and maybe trying to pull them back down to earth.
Hey everybody, don't go anywhere. We got lots more coming up with Paige Hamilton after a few words from our sponsors.
Do you love to watch movies? Because I do. And if you're anything like me, you like to watch them in the theater. So Regal Unlimited just makes sense. Regal Unlimited is the all-you-can-watch movie subscription pass that pays for itself in just 2 visits. See any standard 2D movie anytime with no blackout dates or restrictions. When you want to watch a movie in a premium format like 4DX, IMAX, RPX, or ScreenX, your Regal Unlimited membership gets you into those premium experiences at a reduced cost. And with Regal Unlimited, you won't just save money on tickets. You'll also save on snacks. Members get 10% off all non-alcoholic concession items. So, if you're planning to see 2 movies this month, you'll need to join Regal Unlimited. Sign up now in the Regal app or on regmovies.com/unlimited. Use code DeMakes24 to let them know we sent you.
Hello, it is Ryan, and we could all use an extra bright spot in our day, couldn't we? Just to make up for things like sitting in traffic, doing the dishes, counting your steps, all the mundane stuff. That is why I'm such a big fan of Chumba Casino. Chumba Casino has all your favorite social casino-style games that you can play for free anytime, anywhere with daily bonuses. That should brighten your day a little. Actually, a lot. So sign up now at ChumbaCasino.com. That's ChumbaCasino.com.
No purchase necessary. VGW Group. Void where prohibited by law. See terms and conditions. 18+.
And now, back to the show.
I got to ask you now, coming off of this chorus, okay?
Yeah.
It's one of my favorite parts of the song. But if I were to look as a producer, just sitting back and saying, if I was in the hot seat producing this song, you know, you could have cut out that 4-bar staccato. I'm calling it a staccato turnaround to get back into the riff of the song. Okay, that part you could have just off of the chorus went right then been back into the riff. Do you recall that and how that part came about? It's really cool. It's the only time it happens in the song. It's very interesting.
When you have a phenomenal drummer, you're an idiot if you don't use them. And a band is, we all know in bands, a band is only as good as its drummer. Pat Metheny said, drummers are the leaders of all bands. I'm writing and I'm working with the drummer, and everyone else is important. But for me, it's, it's the riff, the song, the arrangement, and the drums. It's super important to me. And one thing I loved about Stanier is he was so dedicated to working his parts out. I swear we spent 60% of our pre-production rehearsal time on drum fills.
You can tell because this wasn't done to Pro Tools. This was done to tape.
Exactly.
I mean, you guys, and I know how much you were touring then. I went back and looked at the touring history. I saw some of those shows. I mean, this is a well-oiled machine you guys were.
Yeah, absolutely. And we knew, we rehearsed religiously 3 days a week. When we started out, I had this, I can't remember who. Well, the band I was in Brooklyn in the 80s, we worked really hard. We could schlep out to Brooklyn like a couple of nights a week. Even if your family's in town and it's a holiday, we still have to rehearse. So and so I kind of carried that over into Helmet. And, like my brother and his husband came at one point, and I'm like, I got a rehearsal, and so like, you guys can come if you want, but we rehearsed. And then we got a space at the music building, Hell's Kitchen. And it was, the only way that you're going to, and I feel like a lot of bands were more about the, in my band, we call it playing band. We're playing house. It's like Barbie dolls. It's like, we're playing band. Okay, I get the right guitar. I get the right outfit and the hair, and I get everything. And I'm going to just put a band together and I'm going to do whatever. It's like, no. It's rock music you have to treat it like any other discipline, and having, gone to music school and studied classical guitar and jazz guitar, and then getting my master's degree in jazz, I knew I had to have a system and work and practice. And so when I write like that, I sit down and I have a routine. And same with, if you want your band to be great, I found the right musicians, but I knew what I wanted, because of my time in Band of Susans. Like, I thought, like, I liked Ron Spitzer, our drummer, a lot, but I thought when it came to up tempos, I wanted something crisper, and I wanted a guy that had the kind of hardcore background, and John did. John was in a band. John is from Florida, and he was in a band called, I don't want to misquote, but Jehovah's Sickness.
He was in Jehovah's Sicknesses?
Yes. Yeah.
Are you kidding me?
Yeah.
Oh my gosh.
Yeah.
Yeah, they were a Tampa band. They were like, might even have been from Sarasota. Yeah, I had Jehovah's Sicknesses cassette.
when we met for the first time at his apartment on 14th Street, he played me this stuff, and I'm like, yep, this is what I want. I want somebody that had quick hands but could groove. Yeah,
those guys used to play with like No Fraud, Belching Penguins. I don't know if you remember those guys.
I never heard him. Yeah.
Yeah. That's, I can't believe he was in that band. Well, so I'm a Florida guy. I would go to shows in Tampa as a kid. So, totally remember Jehovah's Sicknesses. That's incredible. I want to get into the second verse here, if we can, coming off that reintro of the riff, I'm calling it. And when I was listening to this page, I came back and I was like, okay, there's the part out of the chorus we were discussing that's killer. Then you go back into the riff. I'm like, okay, do they do it 4 bars or 8? Do they go through twice? And I'm waiting. I'm like, oh, it is 8. I was like, yes, because that's another spot that you could have went into the vocals, and it has to be there. It's awesome.
To die unsung would really bring you down. Although wet eyes would never suit you. Walk through the archetypal suicide. Die young is far too boring these days.
To die unsung would really bring you down. Although wet eyes would never suit you. Walk through no archetypal suicide.
Yeah.
Die young is far too boring these days. We get the song title in verse 2. I got to tell you, The verses to me are almost the chorus of this song. The riff is what I hate to say, it's more memorable than probably what's going on in the chorus. It's kind of straightforward, but I think the chorus has to be what it is to give the other parts breathing room.
Yeah. And remember another thing, we had just toured with the Melvins in opening for the Melvins. It was 7 of us in one band. And so I would listen to them every night. And Buzz, they have a real Sabbath thing melodically, and that kind of pentatonic Ozzy melody thing. I love that, and that's what Unsung is. It's da 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 da. I don't know the exact notes off the top of my head, but it's
yeah.
So E minor pentatonic, right? And I love, and we'd covered Oven off Ozma.
Gonna let it slide, gonna burn what cotton decides our appellate. My main oven dry, took from under what's come over me.
The lyrics are, Pez are gonna let it slide, gonna burn what cotton decides our appellate. My main oven drive took from under what's come over me. And I'm like, so Buzz was so pissed. He's like, how'd you figure those lyrics out? I'm like, they're on the album jacket, dumbass. And I don't know what he's talking about. And I loved it. And it's such a fucking cool song. And so that was kind of another thing that just occurred to me when I was writing. I remember in my little hovel in the little, air shaft room, had this kind of melt. We had just played 20 shows or 25 shows with the Melvins, and I had that kind of pentatonic thing in my brain a little bit melodically, and so that, and I told Buzz that, I go, I had an influence on that song. And he's like, oh, okay, great, whatever. And then he'd crack one of his jokes that he always laughs at. But To Die Unsung would really bring you down. That's like, if you don't get your recognition, you poor thing. And although crying, wet eyes would never suit you. You're too cool to cry.
I don't even know what archetypal means.
If you think of the word archetype, it's the rhythm. Archetypal. And I kept trying to find a word that's talking about suicide, that we glamorize suicide, and it's not, should not be glamorized. It's a sad thing. And I don't know if you've lost, I'm sure you have, we all have dear friends and relatives to suicide. And it's so crushing. It's just so crushing. I remember my mom saying to me once, when my cousin committed suicide, and she's like, God, just her family. Can you imagine what that does to your parents, your siblings? Imagine the amount of pain. We value mental health, I think, more than we did back then, or maybe not value. Maybe we understand it more. I don't know.
Do you know what I loved about this last line here? Die young is far too boring these days. I mean, think about the 27 Club, okay? Kurt Cobain, Jimi Hendrix, Amy Winehouse, all the rest of them. And that was always kind of glorified. I love this line because this is saying, this isn't cool. This is,
not cool. I had a 16-year-old girl write me a letter back then. She said, I was feeling suicidal and I heard your song Unsung, and I decided not to commit suicide. I was like, that was the most powerful shit I've ever, this little girl that, and there's the Billy Joel, Only the Good Die Young. I remember that. And that's kind of glamorizing dying at a young age and suicide. And I'm like, no, it's the pain is, I can't, we've all been down, we've all go through, through things or whatever. But if you think about as I say, I just think about your loved ones and the people that will be destroyed. And that to me was the idea there.
Right. Well, chorus 2, we're going to get to that in 2 seconds. I want to get to a couple more things in verse 2. The last 2 lines, suicide and days. When you say suicide in the third line and days, they're really loose. The rest of the verses and the chorus are pretty locked with that double vocal. Do you recall this part? Was it ever talked about, hey, maybe I should recut that? It was interesting because the rest of this is pretty tight, and it's kind of...
Which singing line?
Yeah, so it's the last two lines. Walk through no archetypal suicide and die young is far too boring these days. Like at the end of those lines, suicide and these days, it's kind of, you can really hear the two vocals rubbing. Whereas the rest of the song is like tight enough to where if I was the producer, I wouldn't have changed the rest of it. These two parts were a little loose.
Walk through no archetypal suicide. Die young is far too boring these days.
And I've found that the older I get, it's hard for me to leave stuff loose. But man, I wouldn't change a darn thing here looking back. It's perfect as is. And I always ask that question because it's fascinating to me to say, hey, why'd you leave that? A lot of times I didn't even know. It sounds fine to me. Or you know what? That just went down and everyone in the room was vibing off it. And why are we going to try to make it pretty like Whitney? We're not Whitney Houston.
Yeah. When I did my vocals, it was usually just Wharton, and I'm in his basement with my headphones, and I would sing, and I come, and Wharton grew up, engineering / producing everyone from Dinosaur Jr. to a lot of indie rock music, and that's where the scene that we grew up in, that we came up in New York City, and I always loved albums like Raw Power by the Stooges, or like Savage Republic, Mission to Burma, and the music's not perfect. David Bowie, even, like, I loved how David Bowie on Scary Monsters or the Stones. The Stones, what harmony is he singing? What is that? It's not really a third. It's close to a third, but it creates this vibe, and it's like, it sounds so cool. Bowie I'm trying to think of a specific song, on Scary Monsters, or my favorite album is Lodger, which we did a cover of Move On, but where the vocals are not perfectly tight, and I that's a lot of the music now with the Pro Tools and auto tune and vocal line and all that stuff. God damn, it's sterile.
Well, yeah. And looking back on a track like this, I mean, I never looked at you guys. Yeah, you're from New York, but as like a New York hardcore band. But the vocal delivery here, a lot of those guys will double their vocals, and I get a hardcore vibe from this. It's, you say it, one person might say, oh, it's not locked, it's not perfect. For me, it's perfect. For this song, it's great. And I was just wondering what your thought process was there.
Also, budget, and budget and time. We grew up like, not grew up. We made Strap It On. It was bartending tips, right? So we did side one, saved up for another 6-8 weeks, and did side two. There's a flub Peter does going out of the bridge. He kind of and it's part of the song now. I'm like, okay, that's good. Let's go. And you can belabor things, and you turn it into non-musical and emotional. Are human emotions and expression some flawless, in time into? No, it's like you're trying to express something that you can only express through music, right? So,
well, how many bands could sell 1,000 tickets and name whatever city, but they couldn't sell records? It's just, it didn't translate to records for whatever reason, but you'd see them be bouncing off the darn walls. Chorus 2, different lyrics than chorus 1.
Your will to speak clearly, expose too much. Unsung once too often, could not rub off.
Your will to speak clearly, exposed too much. Unsung once too often, could not rub off. Again, we get the song title in verse 2 and now again in chorus 2. Different lyrics here. On the second line, the guitars and bass go back up to the C chord here. I love that it does that one time. It's not there in the first chorus. And on the back end, that bass note, super dissonant, just holds out and doesn't move. And wow, the tension that provides there is classic.
Yeah, the idea, like when a lot of my students are I'm working on. I have a composition student in London, and I have, a songwriting student in Portland, and one in Boise, and Philly, a couple in Philly. We talk about song structure and not being lazy. And when somebody comes up, Anthony Truglio, my dear friend who plays in a band called Liege Lord, he played bass with us when Dave was having.
I think I might be the only one right now who knows who Liege Lord is as well. That's amazing. That is so awesome.
They're fantastic. But he's like, God, you write your songs. You don't just play the same part. You have to have something different in every verse and chorus. I'm like, yeah, you're developing. When you listen to I go back to Beethoven, it's about developing a musical idea. It's not about, playing the same thing, cookie cutter. Here's the verse, and that's going to be the verse. And here's the chorus, is going to be the chorus. And when we were recording After Taste, we did the song Like I Care. And that was on tape. We recorded at RPM in New York City and at Capitol Records in LA. We had already recorded the song, but I came up with this idea so it's just like. That's the chorus, right? And I just had this one idea. Okay, on the last double chorus, just that. I was like, I just want that one change there. It works with the vocal, which is in this kind of that kind of mode. And so I played it with John and Henry, and they agreed. Yeah, it's really cool. We went into RPM with that beautiful Neve they had in there. We played along with the track. This is no click track. It's tape. We played along with the track, did the chorus, got the groove, everything, and then we played the new part. And then we, Pink Floyd style, cut it into the track. And,
wow.
Really cool. And I was like, I can't live with this if it doesn't it has to have this fucking one stupid part. It's like now you do it in Pro Tools, just like boom, cut, paste, boom, put it in. But back then, like I said, we had Walter Sear, genius in New York, a guy. I was with him, and I was like, okay, it's going to go like this. I had the timing, and I was going along like this, and he goes in right here, bam, and it was so cool. It was so like those little changes, like the unsung chorus you're talking about,
Yeah.
Anyway, I didn't want to play the exact same thing.
No, and you didn't, and it's absolutely killer. And we already kind of touched on this a little bit ago about what I'm calling now. It's like a minute and a half coda. So at this point in the song, after chorus 2, we got another minute and a half. We're at the 2 minute and 33 second mark. And I'm going to kind of read all of this through, and Chris, my producer, is going to put in the song parts. But there's just so much here. I'm going to go over it, and we're going to wrap up here. But coming out of chorus 2, there's 6 bars of kick, snare, and a guitar panned off left, just kicking your butt. Again, this part, to me, it's a blueprint for a lot of songs that were to come later. Again, I wrote All My Life and Stacked Actors by Foo Fighters, Green Day, taka, 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 taka. I heard that in so much stuff, and not saying that you guys invented it, but man, you certainly... I'm going to use the word perfected it for the early 90s and what was to come. Absolutely love that. On bar 7, another guitar joins us, panned off right, and the whole band is rocking away on that same progression. On the 13th bar, there's another turnaround, and the band continues on for another 7 bars. On the 20th bar, there are 4 of those full band turnarounds. It's so awesome. Before the drums move back to a straight pattern with the band, continuing with this turnaround riff for 12 bars. riff when it comes in, right when that happened, I'm going, oh, Black Sabbath, oh, Soundgarden, oh, Rage Against the Machine, oh, I'm just hearing all these things. And when, it's staccato with the band doing that, but then when the drums go straight there, it's so rocking. And then there's 20 more bars of the band switching progressions once again. Lots of really cool note choices and where we're moving here. Gets really dissonant at the end. And I'm also hearing a high-pitched guitar panned off right. So like an octave guitar that comes in here on the last 30 seconds. And then the whole band ends with dun, 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 dun. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6.
The secret to those, to me, the compound time signature stuff where you're playing is having a pulse. And so I'm writing on the pulse, right? I'm not sitting, I'm not counting. I'm not trying to, wear a cape with an M on it, like Super Muse dork or whatever. It's just a groove, time, in jazz. Everybody's, people have said to me, "Oh, I don't hear any jazz in your music." I'm like, well, what jazz informed for me was feel, groove, because jazz is about swinging and groove, and then like experimenting with chords and creating new chords and stuff. And I think you have to have great time to be a musician, right? Thelonious Monk said, I have his rules in my studio wall. It's rule number 1. Everyone has to keep time, not just the drummer. So, if the singer has bad time, and I've worked with so many singers as a producer, and I'm like, what exactly are you singing to? I go, you should be writing to, when you're working on a part, have just you and the drums, just you and the guitar, just you and, like solo instruments, and put things together, and you should be able to sing that song with no band.
You used a word before. Our bass player has been saying this for years. Like, I'll start a song and I'll be singing, I just on acoustic. He'll say, stop. He's like, what's the pulse of the song?
Yeah.
Where's the heartbeat? What is it? Like, I don't care what you're singing, what the vocal is. Like, where are we at? Like let's break it down a little further. You're already 10 steps ahead of me. And that took a lot as an early songwriter to get that and grasp that.
Well, when you listen to like James Brown or Sly and the Family Stone, and I explain to people, here's time, here's the time continuum, and they're just like laying clothes over the laundry line at different points, boom, and you're like, wow, it's so cool. It's just so cool that time is your friend. It's you can, and that's what I wanted to use space, because I had this phenomenal drummer and I wanted to hear the drums, and I like that how there's space in the riffs, and when you think about it, the speakers are resting, no sound, and then pushing out so much heart, so it's like da 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 da, and it has this power, and I think like B.B. King, listening to one of his solos, but he'll play a note and like it feels like a half an hour later, play the next note.
Yeah,
powerful. It's also conversational. We as guitar players don't have to breathe, right? Horn players have to breathe.
Yeah.
We have infinite sustaining instruments if we want, and you need to breathe, and it has to have a rhythm, a body rhythm. Your music, to me, you know what I mean? That's what connects with you, or not.
Well, I didn't think I could like this song any more than I already did. And it was just an absolute pleasure to comb through it. As I said earlier, 33 years removed, it sounds like a truck coming at you. The space between this, it's one of the most powerful riffs I've ever heard.
Jimmy Iovine, who was part of Interscope Records when we signed, he said he's had paid me a compliment like that. He said, I was in my car, it's like the helmet came on, and he goes, God, you guys made Judas Priest sounds soft, and I was like, ah.
No, but this riff is crushing. It really is. It doesn't sound dated. I still hear bands playing this style today. Go to any festival and just, turn your head one way or the other, and you're gonna hear riffs with space that are moving like this. So thank you so much. Before we break, what do you got coming up? You'd like the world to know?
Oh, we start. We fly out April 12th to Detroit. We're going to do a little rehearsal there and start the tour on the 14th. The Left, the new album Left that came out in November. We're doing the Left tour, and then I think I can talk about this. Interscope is releasing Betty as their album club. Their vinyl club or whatever they have.
Oh, cool.
And we had Derek Hess, who did helmet posters and artwork, kind of reimagined the cover along with Adina, another artist that we work with at the label. And so they're doing this limited edition vinyl of Betty. So we'll probably do some shows in the fall around. It's Betty's 30 years old. So that's coming up. And the Left stuff is in the US. We're playing the major, cities, New York and, Portland, Seattle. So the bigger tour. We did a little tour in the fall before the album came out, but it was kind of, they call secondary markets or whatever. But yeah, that's kind of what's going on. I'm also, believe it or not, the label that we're on, I just love Ear Music, and they're in Hamburg, and the president is, he lives in Germany, but he's an Italian guy who's just super cool dude who's really he's been so supportive, and he asked me to do. They're going to put out my solo album, which is weird ass movie music I've written over the years. I think it's a movie, my movie music that Nile Rodgers' label had put out, but they went under. And then some newer stuff. And then he asked me to do a jazz album. They have an album label called MPS. And he asked me to do a jazz album, which is kind of a dream of mine. So, it's I'm working, that's kind of what I'm working on a lot right now, are those two albums. And then, and we'll see. The helmet thing is after 1989. How many years is that? 30, what is it?
35.
35 years. Jesus. You don't think, you're going to be in your 60s playing this music. But I always said, if I can't perform at a high level, even though I'm not wearing a diaper yet. And I don't have a back break. Thing,
well, if you know what, the diaper might be for the 50th anniversary of Strap It On.
Right.
You could sell helmet depends.
Go full, Nick Cave birthday party, right? He was wearing a diaper when he was 20 or whatever. But I don't want to do it if I don't feel good. If I don't feel because it requires a lot of physical, mental, and emotional energy to play. And I'm still really enjoying, the musical side of it. As you probably, feel the getting on stage is the greatest thing ever. Sometimes the travel is wearing me out a little bit now. You got that South American tour and you're like, oh my God, I just can't.
Now the gift of getting on stage, it's become precious to me. And it wasn't precious to me as a young man because, all that was precious to me was getting to the next Flying J and the next pack of cigarettes or whatever, when you were that young, you had no grandmaster. Heck, I still don't have a plan, Paige, but I'm enjoying it.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. And I think that's important too. Said something, teasing my girlfriend the other day about saying she's like, oh my God, really? And I said, hey, look, I didn't get in a band to grow up. And I said, I think Tommy Lee said that, but I use it, and you appreciate things that you're early on you couldn't appreciate, and I think I'm a much better band leader now. My communication skills are better, and I think I'm a better writer, and I keep working working and writing. There's some songs, and there's a song Bombastic on the new album that is just a complete bear to play, but it's really proud of it. I have a trans godson in Oklahoma and ran the lyrics by him and said, because I'm just tired of people like trying to tell other people how to live, that their life is wrong because they're not like them or us or whatever. So I think, I embrace that a little bit more. As I said, I wanted to be anti-songwriter and make no bold proclamations or whatever. And now sometimes you have to speak up and it means a lot when you hear from kids. I just did a lyric for the song Blacktop for a kid in Iowa. And he wrote me this letter that I can barely read, and it's so sweet. It's like he took the time to write this letter and sent me a cover of Born Annoying to sign for him. And so I sent him some pics and some lyrics. And I think we appreciate that people are listening to what you do, and it still has an impact,
Absolutely. Well, man, have a great rest of your day, Paige. I really appreciate you taking the time to talk to me.
Yeah, Chris, that was fun, man. Dig it.
Anything you believe it, the best things in life are free. And then sing it when you sold your loyalty. Ain't all that caustic shit that you spew. Give it up. You're still a crime 'cause nobody respects you.
Hey everybody, I hope you all enjoyed that conversation with Paige Hamilton as much as I did. The song you were just hearing is Bombastic. That's the song he mentioned from Helmet's latest album called Left. So go check that out and go see him on tour if they're coming to a town near you. And don't go anywhere. We got lots more Chris DeMakes a Podcast coming right up after a few words from our sponsors.
Well, hey friends, my name is Zach Lupiton. You may know me from the band Dust Bowl Revival, but I also host a music discovery podcast called The Show on the Road. For the last 5 seasons, I've been able to dive deep and have intimate chats with folks like the Lumineers, Ani DeFranco, Wolfpack, Keb Mo, Lake Street Dive, Bela Fleck, and more. So guess what? After 150 conversations with some of my favorite songwriters from around the world, we are bringing brand new episodes to the Osiris Network. New interviews and intimate acoustic performances will be coming at you this summer. And which episodes are coming next, you ask?
I am Zach Goody, the lead singer for the band Smash Mouth.
Our band is called Milky Chance. We are based in Berlin.
My name is David Shaw. I sing and write songs with my band, The Revivalists.
Trust me, these conversations go some wild places. So subscribe to The Show on the Road on Osiris, and we'll see you soon.
One Hit Thunder is a podcast where we both celebrate and have a good laugh about bands and artists that had just one hit that we all know. Each week, we're joined by a guest from the world of music or comedy to learn more than you ever thought you would about some songs that you can't forget. And we decide if they brought the one-hit thunder or were nothing more than a one-hit blunder. Look, if you listen to the show, you're probably going to laugh, and I guarantee you're going to crush next time the bar has music trivia. Tag Team, Jane Child, Meredith Brooks, Looking Glass, Sean Mullins, Eiffel 65, EMF, Crash Test Dummies, Crazy Town, Chumbawamba. We have hundreds of episodes in our back catalog and a new episode each week, so pass the Dutchie, make sure you're connected, and subscribe to One Hit Thunder wherever you get your pods.
As we near the end of the show, here's a band you might not know.
Welcome to this week's Band You Might Not Know. If you'd like your band to be considered for Chris DeMakes a Podcast, email your best song via MP3 only and a short bio to bandyoumightnotknow@gmail.com. This week's featured artist is the Anti-Queens, Toronto's premier punk rock and rollers, and they've just announced their latest LP, Disenchanted, set to arrive May 17th. From defiant ragers to heartfelt angry love songs to scathing social castigations, Disenchanted has it all. Here's a snippet of the first single, Doomed Again.
But
Chris and Chris.
So, Chris, I think Paige was born to be on this podcast.
Yes, I I had a feeling that he was going to be into this. So I don't know, just something about kind of hearing rumblings, and I don't know. He's just he's a jazz guy, and he just loves music, and he was the perfect guest for Chris to Makes a Podcast.
Go ahead and say it. He's a music geek.
He's a music
geek. I think
geek.
That's cool. We love music geeks. I mean, he is very, very musically knowledgeable. He's a teacher. He's obviously a legendary musician, and I loved listening to his insight into this rockin' ass song. Man, that riff, you said it, Chris, that riff just defines a decade. It's one of the most recognizable riffs of the 90s. I grew up loving Helmet. I talked to Paige about it a little bit after. Betty was kind of my album, but of course I knew this song. I watched 120 minutes. You were over there watching Headbangers Ball. We both knew this song.
No, it's amazing. And, he kind of talked about, like I had mentioned Pantera and Megadeth. I was hearing influences of Helmet. You got to remember, this song came out, I heard it in 91. It was officially released on Meantime in 92. So when this song blew up, we're talking, this is on basically the tail end of the 80s when this was happening, early 90s. Drop D tuning, the space that he's talking about. This riff is, still a blueprint for things today. I'm hearing it as recent as I'm calling them a newer band. They've been around for over a decade now, but Turnstile, I hear some of this stuff in what they're doing. So highly influential. And I'll tell you, the other thing, Chris, that I found very refreshing is that Paige isn't jaded. He's not sitting here going, oh, well, Foo Fighters are playing stadiums and, I was the blueprint for this. He's accepting of like his role in it, and he's proud of it. That's awesome.
Yeah, that's very awesome. Yeah, he takes it as a compliment, even when he told that story about Pantera. And I never thought about that before, but the second he said it, I'm like, yes, Walk. Of course it was influenced by Unsung. Like those riffs are so similar. And he said something like, oh, you could just like thank me or something. Like, no, we're not going to do that. He's like, oh, okay, whatever. Yeah. That's fine. But
I thought that was a little strange.
Yeah. But he said they were cool to him anyway. Hey, the big thing about Helmet, what I love about this band, it's always the grooves and the riffs. Those riffy grooves, man. That's what I love about Rage Against the Machine. You feel that. You feel it in your gut or something. And I love how he talked about basing a whole song around a riff. I love doing that when I'm writing a song, basing a whole song around a riff that you can just get in this zone, get in this world, and the listeners can get in that world with you.
Yeah, and he kept talking about the drummer and the drums on this particular track, and just about his work ethic at the time, which I love. And I'm noticing the longer I go in this journey, Chris, the guys that, and we know who they are, they just burn themselves out. Their careers aren't, maybe as viable as they once were, mostly due to their beat behaviors, lifestyle. Here's a guy that, he's still out there doing it at the level he's doing it. He appears clear-headed, and it's about practicing still. He talks about it, your craft and working at it. And I love that someone that's been around as long as he has still has that mindset.
He's playing music for all the right reasons. And yeah. I think the right reason is the love of music and the love of writing songs. Those are the only reasons to play music, right? If you're in it for the party, well, that party's going to get old after a while. Like it feels like a party when you're up on that stage a lot of times. And as long as it always feels that way and it's always enjoyable, you guys both said that what a, I don't know, blessing, I guess would be the word that is at this point, whether you're in your 40s, 50s, 60s, to be able to get up on stage and still feel that, I don't know, electricity with the audience.
Well,
and stuff.
Yeah. And I felt that about Helmet in 2006. Now that was 13 years after the fact of when I first saw them. Like, wow, these guys are still doing it, and now there's been more years that have elapsed since 2006 than when I first was doing that tour with them. So it's really cool. Again, this song, I cranked it up in my car. it doesn't sound dated. I've said this before on the show. It only sounds dated because I know when it came out. I know I can point on the calendar when it came out. Aside from that, man, it's just sounds so good. I love what he said about Andy Wallace. I thought that was great. I feel like a lot of times that successful big mixers and producers, they sometimes get discredited for a lot of times all the wrong reasons. And he stood up for him, because how can you argue with this mix? You can't.
No. I mean, Andy Wallace, that's the dream mixer, right? I mean, if you could have anyone mix your song, Chris, would Andy Wallace be number one?
He'd be at the top of the list. Yeah. I'm kind of fascinated. I'd love to be in the room with him. I've heard from a couple different people that have worked with Andy, his mixing strategy and technique and what he does in the studio. It seems really cool. I'll tell you something else that seems really cool, Chris. It's our supporting cast. And if you haven't signed up, you are missing out. Go to chrisdemakes.com. And Chris, what do they get if they go to chrisdemakes.com?
You'll get a weekly bonus episode of our other podcast called The After Party, and plus you'll get the entire back catalog of that podcast. You'll see us posting some clips if you follow the Chris DeMakes a Podcast Instagram and stuff. I post some clips from that. It's a lot of fun, a lot of music history, a lot of music trivia, and a lot of laughs. It seems like everybody who subscribes to it and talks to me about it loves it. So for a couple bucks a month, you support the podcast and you get a lot of cool podcasts. You can't beat that, right? And you help out your buddies, Chris and Chris.
That's right. chrisdemakes.com. Head over there. And like Chris said, at Chris DeMakes a Podcast on Instagram. Go give us a follow over there. And I'm at less than Chris D on Instagram. Chris is at Chris Fafalius. Give us a follow. And if you haven't already, join our Facebook page, Chris DeMakes a Podcast Facebook page, where you can talk to other like-minded nerds and geek out on the songs that we all know and love. And I want to thank Paige Hamilton from Helmet for sitting in with us this week. And we'll see you next time.
Hey, Chris DeMakes a Podcast producer, Chris Fafalius here. You may have heard me talk about my band Punchline before. Maybe you already know us, or maybe you're hearing about us for the first time right now. It doesn't matter. No matter what your relationship with Punchline is, I will absolutely guarantee that you'll love our new podcast, A Band Called Punchline. Starting with our humble beginnings in a small town in southwestern Pennsylvania in 1997, we're telling the hilarious, strange, and hopefully inspiring story of the 25 plus years of our band in the most honest way possible, podcast style. A Band Called Punchline is an audio documentary available now wherever you get your pods. So subscribe and let me and my friends share a wild, entertaining, unique, and wonderful tale of music and perseverance unlike any other that's still being written today.
Hey there, I am Johnny Christ from Avenged Sevenfold, and I've got a podcast called Drinks with Johnny you're going to want to check out. I sit down with a bunch of different people from all different walks of life, from professional wrestlers to actors, comedians, fighters, musicians, everything in between. I'm just looking to make some friends and have a good time doing it. So if that sounds like something you're into, go check out Drinks with Johnny, streaming everywhere now.
Hi, this is Chad Nicefield.
And this is Justin Press.
We're the host of Making Waves, the Shiprock podcast, a part of the Sound Talent Media Podcast Network. We're inviting you to sail away with us on an epic journey in musical enlightenment. Every week, we bring you only the best artists in rock music and discuss everything from the cruise, to the stage, to the saga of being a professional recording artist. We'll have lots of special guests along the way, so tune in every week.
Your stateroom is available every Monday morning, so welcome aboard.